welcome to the Culinary Saijiki podcast. My name is Allison Whipple, and twice a month I'll bring you a conversation with a fellow haiku practitioner about the way that food and the seasons show up in their haiku practice. Visit www.culinarysaijiki.com to listen to the podcast, read long-form essays on these topics, and sign up to join the podcast conversation. You can also support the project at buymeacoffee.com/culinarysaijiki. Enjoy the show. Welcome, everybody. I am piloting solo this week. I actually have 3 amazing guests lined up for future episodes, but as life would have it, we just none of us were able to make it work for this week's episode, but the latter half of October and into November is just going to be fantastic. I'm super excited, but I really enjoy making this podcast, and I didn't want to skip a week. So I thought I would just hop on, and I thought I would share some examples of autumn food haiku from the 3 Saijiki that I am using as I work on this project, with Haiku World being the biggest one. And I really was earlier in the year working my way through Haiku World, not just in terms of food, but systematically as a sort of word of the day prompt, and that really fell by the wayside when I moved, and with the new job and house hunting and then another job, first one didn't go so well, and I found something else, and I'm excited about that. But my own haiku practice has really fallen by the wayside, and in flipping through my Saijiki to prepare for this episode, I realized how much I missed that practice, and I feel like now that we're in the house, there's still lots of boxes to unpack, and there's, life is still sort of in transition, but I think I'm settled enough that I'm ready to get back to that. So I'm going to talk about 3 Saijiki today, and the first one is William J. Higginson's Haiku World and International Poetry Almanac, and Higginson lists just 4 haiku seasonal words that I think connect to food, and they are found in the Autumn Humanity section. The first one is canning, which he notes is an all-season word. And he writes, a common activity August to October as one crop after another ripens. Products include jelly, jam, preserves, various kinds of relish, and many canned vegetables. Cranberry sauce, also made at this time, is associated particularly in the early winter observance Thanksgiving. And the haiku he provides for that. Apple jelly poured. I slip a geranium leaf into each jar. Apple jelly poured. I slip a geranium leaf into each jar. That was by Patricia Neubauer. And by the way, for this episode, I'm just focusing on food words. I'm avoiding specific holiday terms in the 3rd Saijiki that I'll go through tonight. There are a lot of holiday references, and if I went through all of them, I'd be here all night. And also, I think it's important. One of the things that has been important to me, especially with the blog posts, is I could just dump everything into a post. And my posts all get pretty long, and that's even with editing things down. And I wanted to really just focus on one aspect of the seasonal words tonight. So those are just specific foods, not holidays. All right, the second Kigo that Higginson includes is cranberry raking. Again, an all-season Kigo. Harvesting cranberries from bogs, as in Massachusetts, New Jersey, Wisconsin, and elsewhere. And the haiku also, the sample haiku references crickets, which he notes is also an all-autumn topic. In a cranberry bog, rhythm of the rakes, crying of the crickets. In a cranberry bog, rhythm of the rakes, crying of the crickets. Virginia Brady Young. And then we have Mushroom Gathering. Oh, I skipped one. I skipped the second one. Cranberry Raking's the third. Winnowing Grain is the second one. They're kind of stacked onto each other in the book in such a way that I couldn't see them super well. Winnowing Grain. Higginson notes that is a late autumn kigo, closely related to Japanese momisuri, winnowing rice, but normally grain refers to wheat. The wind shift in the sample poem, which I'll read, may indicate a coming storm. And those are Higginson's words. Winnowing the grain. The wind shifts slightly from south to southwest. Winnowing the grain. The wind shifts slightly from south to southwest. Lorraine E. Haar. Don't you just love all the S's in that second line? It's lovely. And Higginson's final autumn food, kigo, Mushroom Gathering, also provides a Japanese term, takegari, also a late autumn kigo. Although that is a traditional, he notes it's a traditional autumn activity in Japan. It definitely happens in the United States. And he writes, although some kind of mushroom or another is available in almost every season, for example, morel in the summer, many of the most prized edible varieties, as well as a number of poisonous kinds, are at their peak in autumn. So gathering mushrooms in autumn has become a traditional literary subject. Pail in hand. I trace the muddy path of childhood mushrooms. Pail in hand. I trace the muddy path of childhood mushrooms. Angeli Deodar. And I don't know if it's climate change or just where I've particularly lived. I sort of associate mushrooms with more an early to mid-autumn. But again, that's one of the great things about poetry and about this work and doing these seasonal explorations is people are just going to have different interpretations and experiences. The next Saijiki that I want to mention tonight is, it's titled The 500 Essential Japanese Season Words by Kenkichi Yamamoto. And William Higginson was one of the people involved in translating that. And I do want to mention these are not the only 3 Saijiki in the world, and certainly not the only English language Saijiki. These are just ones that I have happened to have in my collection, and they're just ones I always personally have on standby. And there is a PDF of the 500 Essential Japanese Season Words available via the Haiku Foundation's digital library. So if you want that PDF, it's only 23 pages long, and I think it's definitely worth. I really love having it to just sort of cross-check against Haiku World and see what's the same and what's different, because Yamamoto's book it's focused on Japanese. It's been translated into English, but it focuses on Japanese words, and so I think it's definitely just worth having as sort of a cross-cultural reference. Anyway, the 500 Essential Japanese Season Words does not actually include any sample poems, but I will read through just really, again, 3 autumn words that really clearly relate to food. And again, just food, not holidays for this one. Maybe if I have room for another solo episode, I'll focus on holidays. The first one is new soba, in Japanese, shin soba, late autumn. The first buckwheat noodles from the new crop. I have not, my Japan plans got, waylaid by the pandemic. I was supposed to go in June of 2020. So I have had real soba, but it's always been dried. I've never had fresh buckwheat noodles, and certainly not the first ones, and I can only imagine how delicious they taste. The second one is new rice, or shinmai, late autumn. The first rice harvested of the year. And I think 2 blog posts ago, I actually talked about how from this, I think it was this Saijiki that pointed me to the fact that rice harvesting was not at the time of year I thought it was. So that was super interesting. And finally, we have rice cutting or rice harvest, inekari, late autumn. And there's no annotation around that one, but I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And finally, tonight, I want to do a little bit of walking through Jane Reichold's Saijiki called A Dictionary of Haiku, classified by seasoned words with traditional and modern methods. And this is another one that you can actually get as a free PDF from the Haiku Foundation digital library, and I definitely recommend you do that. I believe that all of the poems in this Saijiki are ones that Reichold herself wrote. When I'm not citing anything, when I read the sample poems, I'm not citing anything because there's just no citations listed. I read through the introduction, and this does just appear to be all poems that Jane Reichold wrote, and I just have to say that is impressive. She also, for many of her entries, includes multiple sample poems. I'm just going to pick one for each, and she also has a ton of holiday references. And she has some crossover with Higginson. I'm not even going to go through every single one of her food words. There are just so many, and also some of them I'm not entirely convinced are specifically autumn. But I'm not gonna go into my quibbles here. I'm just going to share the ones that I love. So her first food word that shows up for autumn is the Kigo pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pies, remembering with a grin the jack-o'-lantern. Pumpkin pies, remembering with a grin the jack-o'-lantern. Jane Reichold also includes an entry for canning. And my favorite of the sample poems she offers is this one. Huckleberry jam, all the tiredness up in jars. Huckleberry jam, all the tiredness up in jars. And canning is, it's lovely and it's worth it and it's delicious and it is a lot of work. I have never canned totally solo. I have no interest in doing that, to be honest, but I have assisted John, and even just being on the assisting end with the heat and, the amount of attention you have to pay, it is work. So there's also an entry for mushroom gathering, carrying umbrellas, strangers in the woods hunt mushrooms, carrying umbrellas, strangers in the woods hunt mushrooms. And in the autumn plants section of this Saijiki, Jane Reichold definitely adds some categories that some line up with other Saijiki and some diverge, but she has her plant section. This is the one word, the fall food words, again, really come out. I could just read you her haiku all night, but I won't. I'll just pick a selection from the apples entry. Applesauce, the cinnamon glow of a kerosene lamp. Applesauce, the cinnamon glow of a kerosene lamp. I love that one, especially because we share a yard with our neighbors. It's really their yard. But they have an apple tree, and they're not really apple picking people. And we harvested a great bunch of apples, and John made a whole bunch of applesauce for our nephew, which he didn't want to eat here, but then he went home and just plowed through 3 helpings of it. Also, chestnuts. Meeting an old friend. Chestnut burrs pressed into our folded hands. Meeting an old friend. Chestnut burrs pressed into our folded hands. Garlic. I'm always excited. Garlic. I love garlic so much. Cloves of garlic. Arguing voices braided together. Cloves of garlic. Arguing voices braided together. Onions. Cutting an onion. All the halos fall in the soup. Cutting an onion. All the halos fall in the soup. Potato. Under dark earth. Dusty white potatoes. The moon rises. Under dark earth. Dusty white potatoes. The moon rises. And really, that one's a double Kigo because the moon, as I've mentioned elsewhere, is an established autumn Kigo. Of course, pumpkins. How could you talk about fall without pumpkins? Grins, harvested pumpkins. Grins, harvested pumpkins. And actually, pumpkins show up twice in this Saijiki. They show up also in the celebrations and observances section, along with sort of Halloween and Thanksgiving. But I went with the one from plants because to keep it simple. And finally, I'll conclude with the entry on sage, sage being one of my most favorite herbs. And I really think it really makes a butternut squash soup that much better. Evening stretches over desert gold, purple sage. Evening stretches over desert gold, purple sage. And I said I was only going to read one from each entry, but there's only 2 for sage. And I love the second haiku so much. And it reminds me of home, or it reminds me of my Texas home, which I still miss. Cathedral Canyon, under Christ's picture, wild sage. Cathedral Canyon, under Christ's picture, wild sage. So that is the episode for this week. And I hope that this has maybe inspired you to check out Saijiki of your own if you haven't already. I believe that Haiku World is unfortunately out of print, but it's generally fairly easy to find through, online used booksellers of your choice. And again, the other 2 are available through the Haiku Foundation. So thank you for going on this journey with me. I haven't decided who I'll be on the show next. I've sort of gotten them all scheduled within like 3 days of each other. So I think I'm just going to record and see how it sort of flows within the continuity of things. Actually, 2 people are on the same day and 1 person is like 2 days after that. So when it rains, it pours, as they say. So I'm not sure who's coming on next, but I am excited for everyone who is going to be there. And again, if you enjoy the show, please share it, spread the word, help other people find it. And if you have the means, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/culinary Saijiki. And in the next couple of days, and maybe in the show notes, I have a wish list of sort of hard to find haiku chapbooks that I want for research because they're really geographically oriented. And as you know, I'm sort of interested in the geography of food. These are things that were small and out of print. So I'm going to be putting up a wish list. So if you know where I can find some of these hard to find ones, just be on the lookout for that. All right, have a good week. If it's autumn where you are, I hope it's beautiful. I think we're getting our first frost this weekend. We'll see. All right, thank you for listening.